Welcome. We're going to start tonight with the invocation given by Pastor Mark Thompson of the Kingsburg First Baptist Church. This is going to be the Kingsburg City Council regular meeting for March 19th. We're going to have the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd please stand.
Let's bow and pray. Lord, we know that in your word you say that the greatest commandment is to love you with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And that the second greatest commandment is like it, that we love our neighbor as ourselves. So, Lord, I just pray for all the discussion, the decisions. We'll keep you in mind, and we'll follow what your word says, is to love you. And secondly, we pray, may all the decisions for our city, as our government here in our great town of Kingsburg makes decisions, that we'll consider our neighbors and will act in loving ways. So we ask for your protection over Kingsburg. We ask for your provision over Kingsburg. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You can be seated. Okay, we'll call tonight's meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Silvix?
Present.
Councilmember Palmer?
Here.
Councilmember North?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Mayor Purcell?
Here. First item tonight is to approve the agenda. We'll entertain motions for that.
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, what most of you are here for, we have some presentations and informational reports. We're going to start tonight with the recognition of a local MMA fighter and wrestler, Alex Hernandez. Alex, can you come forward?
Hello.
Thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you, guys.
So I'm going to read a proclamation that we're making in appreciation, but before I get to that, I want to give all the council members just a chance to say anything that they wanted to say. Okay. So we'll start by having any members of council have anything that they would like to speak to.
Yeah, I do. I just want to say that I've had the privilege of coaching Alex for a couple of years. My first 2 years back at the high school coaching their high school wrestling team. Alex was a junior and a senior. And after his senior year, he went on to wrestle for Fresno City, which he's currently still wrestling for them. And Alex has always been just an outstanding student and a citizen here in Kingsburg. And I'm just glad that he's here tonight, and he has a passion for wrestling and his MMA at this time. And he is currently 2-0. And I know that I'm sure some of you might have seen there was Channel 24 did a segment on him about 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
After his first win. So I thought that him being from Kingsburg, that it'd be nice if we could do a little presentation for Alex tonight.
Thanks for everything. You know, we're honoring you tonight because of your achievements. You know, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the adversities that you've had and stuff, but that's really not why you're here. I'll read the proclamation in just a minute, but I think it's important that we all recognize that you're just a great example for a citizen in our town. We're thankful for you. So it's our honor to do this stuff. We appreciate you. We appreciate how you represent our town, even at a national level. So we're very thankful for you. So I'm going to go ahead and read this proclamation, and then we'll give you a chance to talk if you want to, and we'll grab some pictures, okay?
Thank you.
Proclamation of the City Council of the City of Kingsburg recognizing the achievements of local MMA fighter and wrestler Alex Hernandez. Whereas the City Council of Kingsburg takes great pride in recognizing outstanding individuals within our community who demonstrate perseverance, dedication, and excellence, and whereas Alex Hernandez, a resident of Kingsburg, has exemplified these qualities through his remarkable journey in wrestling and mixed martial arts. And whereas Alex Hernandez faced significant adversity from an early age, losing an eye due to a childhood injury, yet he never allowed this challenge to hinder his determination to succeed. And whereas despite the passing of his father in 2015, Alex continued to push forward, using his passion for wrestling and MMA as a source of motivation and resilience. And whereas through the years of dedication and hard work, Alex has excelled in both wrestling and MMA, proving himself to be a formidable athlete and an inspiration to many. And whereas Alex Hernandez currently wrestles at Fresno City College, where he continues to develop his skills and represent our community with pride and determination. And whereas his journey serves as a testament to the power of perseverance, inspiring countless individuals within our city to pursue their dreams despite life's obstacles. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of Kingsburg formally recognizes and commends Alex Hernandez for his outstanding achievements, his resilience in overcoming adversity, and his representation of the strength and determination that define the spirit of our community. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank all you guys here, and especially what you guys have done for our town. I want to thank my coach right here, Vince Palomar. He's done a lot for me. And, honestly, there's no other town that I would want to be raised at or, represent. I just love Kingsburg, and I want to thank these guys over here, too. I've been in the wrestling room with them, and they helped me cut weight even when I was getting prepared for my fight. And I just want to thank you guys a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have the proclamation here. We have just a couple minutes. We'll present this to you and take some photos.
Okay, thank you.
You could come forward if you want to take a picture. I'll take one for the city real fast, and then.
We hear about you all the time from your coach, so it's nice to see your faces.
Just come on up. Yeah, you're part of the team. Everybody that's on the wrestling team or associated with the wrestling, come on up.
Coleman's got his new baby. Or no, he's got his kids.
The next generation. It's fine.
Bring them
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Yeah, I believe it. Yep. Future state championship.
All right, well, again, we'll start with council if anybody from council wants to speak before we do the declaration. Vince?
Yeah, I'll speak, of course. I just want to say that it's been a great season this year for you guys and for us coaches. All the hard work you years since Kingsburg won a Valley title. So hopefully we can continue that. But we all know it's very hard. We've been trying to do it for since I've been. The coaching staff there at Kingsburg. And not only that, I'd like to mention, before we go to the proclamation, that the two right here in front, Leo Macias, raise your hand, was fourth in the state, which is hard to win state medals in California. He's a senior. And then Carlos Melgoza, qualify. And then once you get there, you have 40 of the best wrestlers in the state of California, and then they only place 8 out of 40. He actually was 6th in state last year and 4th in the state this year, so it's good for her. She's had a great career at Kingsburg High School. And I'm just all proud of you guys, and also every one of you. Max Austin was recognized at state for pursuing honor with victory. It's a CIF award. He didn't place at state, but they recognized him with a medal, pursuing victory with honor. There's only 30 or 40 kids that got that honor at state. And I wanted to thank my coaches for all their hard work and dedication this year. You know, I'm not going to say old, but I'm a little older, so I can't get in there and wrestle with the boys anymore. My muscles and bones just can't take it. But Coleman Hammond and Josh Longoria, my co-head coach Coleman and Josh, one of our assistants, get in there and do that every day almost. And it really helps these guys because Coleman's a collegiate wrestler, and Josh did wrestle. Coleman wrestled 4 years at Bakersfield. Josh wrestled 1 year in college. And then Jesse Perez has been there helping out for 10 years with the boys and the girls. Jesse does a really good job, especially with the girls, when us male coaches have to go with all the boys. So congratulations to you guys. I can talk forever about our season, but congratulations to all of you. And we're looking forward to another good season for the boys that are coming back. So congratulations once again.
Councilmember Silva.
Thank you, Mayor Purcell. So I want to thank Vince also, because if it wasn't for Vince, I probably wouldn't have seen some of the matches that you guys had done. And so I just was really impressed with the team and the camaraderie and how talented you guys are. I appreciate how hard you work. It doesn't go unnoticed, and I appreciate the fact that you're representing Kingsburg, because you guys really, really are the face of Kingsburg and doing a very good job. So thank you to the coaches, and keep it up in life. You guys are doing great things and amazing things, and please keep it going. Thank you.
Well, we have to do a lot of hard things up here on council. Recognizing our local stud athletes is not one. This is a great thing for us, and we're thankful. I think this means probably as much to our Mayor Pro Tem as it does to you guys. So I am going to ask, when I read this one, Vince, will you go stand with your team for this?
Okay, thank you. Wasn't expecting that.
Okay, this is the City of Kingsburg proclamation honoring the 24-25 Kingsburg High School Boys Varsity Wrestling Team. Whereas the Kingsburg High School Boys Varsity Wrestling Team has demonstrated exceptional skill, perseverance, and sportsmanship throughout the 24-25 wrestling season, and whereas the team achieved remarkable success, securing their second consecutive league title and earning the prestigious title of Division II Valley Champions for the first time since 1997. And whereas this championship victory was hard fought, as the Kingsburg Vikings overcame a deficit to Madera High School at the start of the finals, showcasing their resilience and determination. And whereas individual excellence was recognized, with wrestler Carlos Melgoza earning the lower weight MVP award and wrestler Emilio Ayala receiving the upper weight MVP award for the outstanding performances. And whereas this historic achievement would not have been possible without the dedicated leadership of head coach Vince Palomar, whose success and mentorship was instrumental in the team's success. And whereas the co-head coach Coleman Hammond and assistant coaches Jesse Perez, Josh Longoria, Carl Muxlow, and Bryce Hammond played integral roles in training and supporting the team, ensuring their preparedness for competition at the highest level. And whereas the Kingsburg Vikings were led by their senior captains, Leo Macias, Eli Reyes, who provided inspiration and leadership on and off the mat. And whereas the team boasts 4 individual Valley champions, Carlos Melgoza, Leo Macias, Eli Reyes, and Emilio Ayala, demonstrating the depth of talent and commitment within the program. And whereas additional team members who contributed to the remarkable season included Noah Payne, Sebastian Reynoso, Paxton Palomar, Jonathan Muxlow, Jose Amaral, David Muxlow, Max Austin, Francisco Nunez, Ezra Salinas, each of whom played a vital role in the team's overall success. And now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Kingsburg City Council does hereby recognize and commend the Kingsburg High School boys varsity wrestling team, their coaches, and their families for their dedication, hard work, and extraordinary accomplishments. And be it further resolved that the City of Kingsburg takes great pride in celebrating this team's success and wishes them continued excellence in their future endeavors, both on and off the wrestling mat. Thank you. You guys, we're going to grab pictures as best we can. I think for this one, we might have you guys come up front and we'll stand in the back if that works for you guys. Come on up here. Who's our number one team captain overall? We're going to stand behind you guys and get a picture, then I'll come back and shake you guys' hands, so don't take off.
You know, kind of take pictures. You guys take one left and take them. You don't have to stand all the way back there.
And I timed it right. I said about 4:20 you should be leaving. I mean, excuse me, 6:20, yeah.
All right, we'll give them just a moment to clear out.
Scott Hodges. What's that?
All right, well, that was the best part of the night. Everything's going to pale in comparison. All right, next up, we're going to have public comment. This provides an opportunity for members of the public to address the City Council on items of interest to the public within the Council's jurisdiction. I'll give it just a second.
They're loud.
And which are not already on the agenda this evening. It is the policy of the Council not to answer these questions impromptu. Speakers should limit their comments to not more than 3 minutes. For items which are on the agenda this evening, members of the public will be provided an opportunity to address the council as each item is brought up for discussion. So we will open up public comment. Do we have any members of the public that would like to come up and speak? Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment and move on to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine and include recommended action from staff and should be acted upon in one motion of the council. If a council member requests additional information or would like to pull an item for discussion, that item shall be pulled from the consent calendar and acted upon separately. A motion to approve the consent calendar is deemed to include a motion to waive the full reading of any ordinance or resolution on the consent calendar. Tonight we have consent items 1 through 7. Do we have any members from council that would like to pull any items from consent?
No.
Do we have any members of staff or the public that would like to pull any members or any items? Okay, seeing none, we will entertain motions for the consent calendar.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next, we will move on to our regular calendar with item number 8, which is our water rate study and Prop 218 update. Staff report by Public Works Director Daniel Galvez. Welcome, Daniel.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Back again to discuss the water rate study and Prop 218 update. As you're aware, we awarded L&T Consultants the contract to conduct our water rate study. They've had a couple meetings at the Finance Committee and also at a previous council meeting where 3 options were presented. So we're back again with the final report and also to provide some additional updates. So the city staff has created a dedicated webpage for the Prop 218 process and for the water rate study, so that after tonight's meeting, all of that information, well, the page is live, but tonight's presentation, as well as the final study, will be posted tomorrow. Just a couple little background information. We have Allison Lihovich here today, who will be providing the presentation today on the rate study. There was 3 options that were presented at the previous council meeting. Council did provide direction on a specific option that provided the biggest fund balance and also kind of staggered the proposed rate increases. Since that time, there were some additional questions that were posed at that meeting regarding commercial meters as well as residential meters. City staff did conduct an audit of the commercial meters, and it did result in some changes, which will be reflected in the study, and we'll be able to answer some questions on. But there was a lot of commercial meters that were listed as 2-inch when staff went out and did an audit on them. They did find that they were actually 1-inch. That didn't have any impact currently on their utility bill because everybody currently pays the same rate. So that did kind of move the numbers around a little bit in terms of the amount of 1-inch meters that we have and the 2-inch meters. And so if this process does go forward, we have contacted our billing vendor to discuss the process of what that would look like in terms of billing and how that would be reflected in the billing. And so there is a little significant amount of work that will happen in the background with our billing staff in terms of how things are billed and how they'll be reflected in the utility bill, where the actual meter size will be reflected in water. Right now it just says water. Now I'll have like water plus the designation of the meter fee. So there is some changes that were going to happen. One of the other things that I wanted to discuss was the Prop 218 process. So if the water rate study is approved, we would be working over the next couple days to get the notice over to our printer, which we have notified. We'll get them that information, get the notice out, get it posted, and move forward. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Allison, who'll conduct the presentation. Thank you.
Welcome, Allison.
Good evening. Daniel covered most of the updates I was going to open with. Oh, great. Okay. So the presentation tonight should be very familiar. It's basically the same layout covering legal requirements, your current rate structure, financial challenges of the water utility and proposed changes. And then the ultimate rate recommendations reflect that slight update with the inventory of your meter sizes. But spoiler alert, the shuffling of the meter sizes resulted in about a $1 increase on the base fee from the prior draft that I showed you in February. This draft also includes drought rates. So my plan tonight is to go fairly quickly through the material that you've seen before and then pausing to note where we've made updates, and also focusing on next steps with the outreach process required under Proposition 218. So to open, your water rates have not been increased since 2019. So customers have paid the same rates over the last 6 years. We are looking at some more significant cost adjustments this time around, primarily due to regulatory requirements. So the city has upgraded to GAC filters and treatment. I would have to refer to staff to give you all the engineering details about that technology, but my understanding is it's a higher level of treatment and more costly for the city to operate. And also since 2019, you've had new costs related to the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, SGMA. You have ongoing operating costs as well as capital costs, the recharge projects. So none of those costs or regulatory framework was included in the prior rate adjustment in 2019. So we are seeing this kind of paradigm shift in how you're running your water utility, which is triggering this rate adjustment. Okay. So your monthly current rates consist of a base fee of $32.25, and all customers pay that fee. So very, very large, like apartment complex pay that fee. Multifamily, like apartments, do pay per dwelling unit. So like a 10 unit apartment complex would pay 10 times that base rate of $32.25. But like larger stores or hotels or things like that are also only paying $32.25. And that is not industry standard. Part of this rate adjustment is to bring you up to best practices and compliant with legal requirements that each customer be charged based more proportionally on how they incur costs to provide service to them. Your base fee also includes the first 11,000 gallons of water. Unfortunately, Proposition 218, which is the governing legal requirements for utility rates, sort of frowns upon that concept of giving water away and not billing for every 1,000 gallons. So we are proposing to phase that out. So under the proposed rate structure, every single gallon of water would be billed a volume rate. You don't get any water included in that base fee. Under Proposition 218, we are able to adopt a rate plan as a 5-year schedule. And this is the same process that we used for the solid waste rate study and adjustment a few years ago. So we're proposing July 1st rate adjustments to coincide with your fiscal year cycle. Okay. So as part of this process, we are required to do a rate study. So in your packet is the report, which documents all the costs and calculations used to evaluate the rates. So tonight, we're asking for council to accept the rate study report and to authorize staff to move forward with the notification process. So printing and mailing a notice to all property owners explaining the need for the rate adjustment and notifying them of a public hearing. And so at that public hearing, ratepayers have the opportunity to submit written protests. If there's no majority protest, then City Council can vote to adopt the rates. So we're not asking you to decide yes or no on the rates tonight. You'll have that opportunity at the public hearing proposed for May. Okay. All right. So the current standing of the water utility is okay. Revenues are generating about $2.5 million, but operating expenses and debt service is about $2.7 million. So there is a slight negative. You do have some existing reserves. This study does build up reserves over time. Just given the size of your utility, the size of your customer base, and your capital improvement costs, 1.2 is a little low. So we want to make sure that you have funding to continue to upgrade and maintain your water system. This is the list of capital improvement costs. So these are major upgrades and replacements for your water utility planned over the next 5 years. And we worked very closely with staff to fine-tune the schedule of costs. So in total, we're proposing $3.9 million of capital improvement spending. And these costs are all intended to be recovered in rates. We're not proposing any new debt financing. And as best we know right now, none of those are likely grant funded. So those will be recovered in rates. So we are proposing year-over-year rate adjustments. Not every customer will get exactly the percent rate increases shown there. Those are all the kind of system-wide average year-over-year cumulative rate increases. But this rate plan will cover all your capital costs, all your operating costs, with no new debt, as well as accumulate about $2.4 million in reserves. So this plan will keep your water utility in good financial standing. So we are proposing to phase out the base allotment of water, the 11,000 gallons that's currently included in your base fee. We found that during the wintertime, most customers don't even go above 11,000 gallons. Most customers use like 7,000 to 8,000 gallons. And folks are really only hitting the higher levels of use in the summertime. So the rate structure proposes to bill every 1,000 gallons of use going forward. And the volume rate is intended to cover the cost to supply and deliver water to customers. The base fee, the meter fee, is covering capital costs, debt service costs, and a lot of the fixed costs to have water service available 24 hours a day. Okay. We are proposing a new schedule of drought rates. So drought rates would be an increase to the volume portion of the rate and would only be implemented via vote of City Council during a water shortage emergency. So you do not have to implement drought rates, they're an option. And the idea is that when you sell less water, but you still have a lot of water delivery or supply related costs that you have to cover, there could be a potential revenue shortfall. So it makes you financially whole even in times of water cutbacks. And then we are proposing a new schedule of fixed or based fees based on meter size. So we're proposing a schedule of fees for up to 1-inch meters. So 1-inch meters would be the vast majority of single-family homes. Most customers would fall into that category. And then up to a 4-inch meter size. Okay, so here is the proposed rate schedule. So again, the current base fee is $32.25 per month. It includes the first 11,000 gallons, and then above that 11,000 is a tiered rate structure, so 80 cents a gallon, and then it goes up to 95 cents, and then $1.14. Under the proposed schedule, the base fee is broken down into different meter sizes, and then the volume rate is charged per 1,000 gallons on all levels of use. So we understand the city is undergoing a metering program. You do have a number of mostly multifamily customers that are not metered now. So as we did put a schedule of unmetered fees, we hope that all those folks will be metered soon. But if they're not, we can continue to charge them appropriately. So here are the drought rates. So you can see there's different levels of water cutback. And so these are tools that you can use if City Council declares a water shortage emergency. And again, they're totally optional and they're intended to cover costs to supply and deliver water to customers, even in times of drought. So here's the rate impacts on a typical single-family customer using an average amount of 16,000 gallons per month. So this customer's current bill is $36.25. It would increase to $52.25, and then increase with the proposed changes in the later years. I wanted to point out that under Proposition 218, these are the legal maximum rates. So if City Council adopts the rate plan, you can always go lower than the rate shown here without doing another notification process. So if the city does get grants, if the city has higher growth than we expected, if inflation is not as high as I expected, in general, if your financial outlook is better than what I projected, you could always adopt or implement a lower rate. You just can't go above the rate shown in the Prop 218 notice. So in a way, I always tell city councils that these are the worst case scenario type rates. And we always hope that your financial condition will be a little better than what I projected. This is a typical winter bill. It's about half the level of use So there's, commensurate percent increases there. And then this is the summer bill of about 24,000 gallons of use. So this is a rate survey comparing the city's current typical single-family bill with the impacts after the proposed rate increase, and then compared with other local jurisdictions. So Kingsburg's rates right now are extremely low, and then even with the proposed rate increase, your bill would be in the middle of comparable neighboring agencies. So it is a high percent increase, but it is very comparable to other communities with similar characteristics. Okay. And then the summer bill even looks even better for your city, where you were the lowest summer bill that I surveyed. And then even with the proposed rate increase, you're kind of on the lower end of comparable agencies. Okay. So tonight we're asking City Council to approve the rate study report and move forward with the Proposition 218 public outreach and notification process. The mailer, which I think is included in your packet, would be printed and mailed by the city at the end of the month. We then have a mandatory 45-day waiting period, and then the city can hold a public hearing in May. Absent a majority protest, new rates can be implemented July 1st. Okay, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council discussion, any questions for Allison?
I have a question. On page 13, or slide 13,
okay.
where you have the comparisons, and you're looking at where we would land with the proposed and all of the ones that are higher than us. I see Reedley, it says July 2025. All the other cities, they haven't adopted new rates yet. And are these like their old rates? Could theirs even be higher?
It could be. It's the best information that I have available so far. So all the cities are doing rate studies at different intervals. So this was the best available information that I had at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Questions for Allison?
Yeah, excuse me, I have a question.
Sure.
For the capital improvement, I noticed that the highest cost is Sigma recharge projects. Is that, do you know the reason why it's so high? Is that we need to acquire land, or?
I might have to defer to staff.
Okay.
That's just an average amount based upon what we assume our allocation will be to the GSA each year. So we have to pay an amount to the GSA. That's our portion to contribute. So it depends upon individual projects there. So those aren't necessarily identified as particular projects that we've already identified. So it's possible as we get in future years, if that amount is not needed, then that would be considered as part of the rates for those years. But that's our assumption for our portion of our contribution to the GSA as part of the capital projects that we'll have to construct.
And that's just Kingsburg?
That's our portion.
Our portion, yeah.
Correct.
That's not included with the other cities?
Correct.
But so, is that water that we have to pay, or is it for land that we need for our recharge?
Yeah, so it could be for the construction of a pond. It could be, for example, right now, like we're looking at connecting a ponding basin that SKF already has to the canal that CID has. So it would go towards our, a portion of that would go towards our contribution to make that connection and do those improvements that are required. So CID, if we make connections like we have to all of our ponds, they require certain telemetry and basically improvement standards. And so it's not to say that will be the entire cost, but that's our best assumption right now.
Okay, thanks.
I have a couple of questions, probably more city related, maybe for Daniel. So there's unmetered residents now?
Correct.
A handful of them?
We have quite a few, mostly multifamily, some residential.
Is there a deadline that we have?
So we did have a deadline of 2025, but like I
Okay.
said, we're pretty much like over 90% metered. So there's very few accounts left over that still require a meter. Like I said, most of them happened in 2014, 2015, when they did a meter project, except for some reason or another, they didn't include the multifamilies in some of the residential areas. Like I said, our goal is to work with the residents to figure out how to get them metered, so.
Okay, so they've all been notified. They're not going to be surprised by like, whoa, we didn't know.
Some of them have not been notified.
Okay.
Now, so one of the issues that we had, especially coming out of COVID, was the ability to get meters.
Okay.
So our plan was to install meters 21, 22, 23, 24. We are just now being able to get the meters within like 90 days. So before we hit 1 year, we waited almost a year. So we ordered them in July. We didn't get them till like the following September.
Okay. And then another question that I had is kind of related to ADUs, because I'm not quite sure how ADUs fit into this picture, right? So if we're establishing more ADUs on a property, are they all on 1 meter, or if?
So they would have an option. It gets a little tricky in regards to impact fees of whether they have to pay a connection charge or not, but if they wanted a dedicated meter, they do have an option of metering that ADU separately.
Okay.
But they could also run it off the 1-inch meter.
Okay. All right. That's all. Thank you.
I think this will be more for Alex. Nobody wants to do increases. I mean, we have to pay it too because we live here, but to be fiscally responsible, this is something that we're going to need to do. I know that these are the maximums. We can't go over that. And I know a lot of times citizens might think like, oh, but government's always going to go for the maximum. But in the past, that is not something that we have done. We have actually, I don't remember if it was water or trash, where we put off the percentages a couple years, and we looked at it annually to make those decisions, correct?
So we're doing that.
Either way.
So we're doing it right now with our trash rate. So when we did the solid waste study, we did approve up to 10% year over year, and over the last, or all of the increases that we've done have been 5 or 5.5% increases, so half of what was proposed. And part of that's been we have received grants from CalRecycle to cover the procurement cost and the implementation cost of SB 1383. Obviously, there was additional costs with Mid-Valley for the additional services that they're providing. But we have been able to keep those costs down, and our goal is to continue to look for funding opportunities, whether it's grants or other services, to be able to offset some of those capital improvement costs.
Thank you for doing that.
Yep.
Daniel, one quick question. So you've done an audit, so you know everybody that doesn't have the 1-inch meter?
Yes.
That has a meter that's not 1 inch, and they will be notified, so they will be clear that.
On the notice, it indicates on there for them to, if they don't know what size their meter is, to contact City Hall.
So
on the notice that we're sending off right now, that we're going to send off as part of the Prop 218 process, has a section that says, if you don't know what size your meter is, to contact City Hall, so we can let them know. We couldn't generate a notice right
that
now.
says.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I may, is there questions about the unmetered parcels, or folks that don't know what size their meter is?
Folks that don't know what size their
Okay,
meter is.
so all of the residentials though, Daniel, not included, all single families are 1 inch, correct?
All single-family residentials are 1 inch.
Yeah, but businesses. I mean, if I
Right.
had a business in town and I
Correct.
assumed it was 1 inch and I got a bill for $400, that's my concern.
Yeah, and I think, we have some challenges in the downtown for sure, because it's an older downtown, and so you might have multiple businesses that are on one service. So, there will be particular instances where we'll have to work individually with those businesses. And, I think we're similar. We had to do that for garbage too, right? Because you had, a lot of that too, especially in the downtown.
Yeah, and actually the majority of the downtown was listed as a 2 inch, and when we did the downtown, the majority ended up being 1 inch, so.
Okay.
Yeah. There was some 2 inches, but the majority were 1 inch.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other council questions? We'll open it up for public comment. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak to this? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for further discussion and decisions. Statements. So for me personally, like Councilmember North said, nobody wants to increase rates. I think this is our best option. I got to be honest though, I don't like the option for drought rate increases. It just seems like it's just too discretionary. I think we would have to get really into the weeds with determining exactly what that is. In the Central Valley, we've been in a drought, state of emergency drought in the state of California for probably 10, 20 years. So I just don't like that that's kind of an ambiguous at-will council can up a statement, especially when we're talking about potentially, by the end of this, tripling some people's bills. I think that it's just pouring salt in the wound if we add that to. I don't believe the council needs the authority for that, my opinion. I think if it gets to that point, we can always redo a Prop 218 and go from there. It'll be a little bit of a longer process, but that's just my 2 cents. I don't like the drought rate portion. Any other council discussion? If not, I believe what they are looking for here is to approve the water rate study as presented and authorize the mailing of the public hearing notice as part of 218 and set a public hearing at a regular council meeting regarding the proposed water rate changes on May 21st at 6 p.m. and approve resolution 2025, I don't have the number on mine, establishing the procedures for the submission and tabulation of protest in connection with the rate hearing conducted pursuant to the requirements of 218. So that's what's on the table.
Do we need to have the drought, like talk about having the drought part taken out before we make a motion, or is that later?
I would like to take it out, but that's, I'm 20% of that conversation.
I agree with you.
I agree.
Okay, yeah, I was just going to say, you have to decide now so that we know what to mail out.
Now, okay. So we can't decide later.
No, we can't, we would put up the Prop 218 that would indicate that we would either be including those as part of a consideration for adoption, or we would not include those. So you don't, again, tonight you're not deciding on voting for the rates, right? But
we're
for
going with
the
the
noticing
structure
that we
notice.
have to put out, we need to know whether or not that's something that you guys want to
I
consider.
thought we could do it later.
If the
So you can make
consensus
the
is not.
motion and strike the drought provision.
Yeah, I think if that is a desire of the council, I think that we would just move forward with removing the language regarding the drought portion of it, the drought rate increase. Is anyone opposed to that? No. Okay, so we'll accept motions to move forward with it as I read with the redaction of drought rate.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Next up is item 9, the housing element update and discussion. Staff report by City Manager Alex Henderson.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, if you recall, on December 4th, 2024, the City Council held a public hearing regarding amendments to Title 17 of the Kingsburg Municipal Code, as identified in Ordinance 2024-07. After staff presentations, consideration of the Planning Commission action, public testimony, and council discussion, the council considered 3 options presented by staff to address council's and the public's concerns with the housing element implementation, specifically related to the rezoning of 4 parcels of real property identified in the housing element. After discussion, council agreed to proceed with option number 3, which directed staff to re-examine the entire sites inventory identified in the adopted Kingsburg 6 cycle housing element and add newly annexed territory to the sites inventory by amendment to the sites inventory. Council selection of option 3 required analysis of existing prepared components, as well as identifying newly annexed territory for potential housing sites. On January 29th, 2025, the city submitted a revised proposal to HCD for their consideration. That's included as attachment 1 in your materials this evening. Staff believed that with the identification of additional sites and inclusion of newly annexed territory, we would be able to meet our RENA without the need for rezoning any of the properties originally considered for such action. On Wednesday, March 5th, 2025, The city received a response from HCD regarding the proposed changes, which is included as attachment number 2 in your materials this evening. In summary, HCD views the addition of new sites that were not initially identified as requiring more analysis to demonstrate that the sites proposed are adequate to accommodate the regional housing need. While disappointing, it's not entirely surprising that HCD is requiring this. This leaves the council with a few additional options. Council can authorize the use of funding to complete the analysis required. The city would engage Provost and Pritchard, who have representatives here this evening, to assist in this endeavor, and the consultants have provided proposed cost for this work of $45,000. Council could explore upzoning only a few of the properties proposed, but again, that would probably require additional analysis, or council could decide to upzone the original 4 parcels, which HCD has already deemed satisfactory. Of note, the city's original contribution of expenses for the housing element update as part of the multi-jurisdictional effort was a little over $69,000. After that was completed, Fresno Council of Governments was able to participate in a LEAP grant cycle to cover this effort. And as such, the city received a reimbursement check for the entire amount on February 3rd, 2025. These funds, originally intended for housing element efforts, could be reappropriated by council to support option number 1 above. And staff's recommendation this evening is for the city council to proceed with option number 1 and appropriate the fundings to complete the analysis required for the 6th housing element amendment. Just a comment that HCD's response is not necessarily a comment on whether or not they think that our proposal is valid or not. It's just part of their process that they require cities to go through. So I can't say for sure that they absolutely will accept it, but I think we feel confident that once we go through the analysis, that we'll be able to prove that the sites are satisfactory for meeting the regional housing need. But there, you just have to caveat, as we've done all this time, there are always some unknowns when it comes to going back to the well with HCD. But that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, Sarah Allender from Provost and Pritchard is here this evening as well and can answer questions with regards to the process or the proposal that they have before you this evening.
Thank you. So just to super simplify this, option 1 removes those 4 parcels that were of contention, and we have to just retool it, and it's going to cost us $45,000 to take another shot at it. Is
Correct.
that the super simple version? Okay. Okay, council discussion.
I think that reimbursement check came in the perfect timing, and there's our money. And I think, in my opinion, option 3 is not ever going to be an option. So I would say 1.
I agree.
I agree. Yeah, and it'll be money well spent, to get that done, and it is perfect timing on that refund.
Dave?
Yeah, yeah. For me, option 3 was option 1 last time, right? I mean, we'd be going back to option
exactly.
1, which we all decided that option 1 wasn't doable. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be option 1 now. And yeah, I don't want to spend $45,000 any more than anybody else does, but it's to achieve what we're going to achieve, and we said we were going for it. And I think option 1 is the way to go. That's my thoughts.
Simple, yeah, no problem. We voted against it earlier when we heard from all the citizens, so it doesn't make sense to me to vote against ourselves. So I'm for option 1. Like Laura said, that reimbursement check came at a good time, and
Do you have any public comment? Anybody from the public like to come up and speak to this? Okay, seeing none, we will bring it back to council for final discussion. Do we have any final closing thoughts that you guys would like to make?
what's that?
Any final thoughts? Okay, yeah, I think my 2 cents on this is 45. I'll spend that 45,000 all day, every day for this. I think that's the kind of the promise we made the last time. So, with that being said, what is recommended action by staff is proceeding with option number 1 and appropriate up to $45,000 in funds to complete the analysis required for the 6th cycle housing element amendment. We'll entertain motions for that.
Motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass. Thank you. Item 10, Model Water Efficiency Landscape Ordinance. Staff report by City Engineer Dave Peters.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. In 2015, the state adopted a model water efficiency landscape ordinance. And the intent was to further its policy for promoting conservation and efficient use of water. So essentially mandates like drought-tolerant plants and, water efficient irrigation systems for private and public landscaping areas. The law also requires that local agencies either adopt their own water efficiency landscape ordinance or adopt the state's MWELO by reference. So we've determined that it's the best way to go is just to adopt the state's by reference and administer that the requirements of that ordinance through our planning and building department. And so tonight we're asking you to waive the first reading and introduce ordinance number 2025-02 and pass the ordinance to a second reading and an adoption at your council meeting on April 2nd. I can answer questions if you have them.
Council discussion? Any?
Yeah, so you said it was 2015?
Yeah.
And we haven't adopted anything since?
No.
Okay, and then you said we're going to accept the requirements of the state?
Yeah.
How many requirements are there?
There's a few, but essentially it's just all rooted in making sure that when new landscape areas are developed, that there's use of water efficient irrigation systems. So like they have some requirements that you can't use spray heads that are going to spray over concrete areas or into the street. So sometimes that dictates that you have to use like drip irrigation. So you see a lot more of that now. And then the type of plantings have to be drought tolerant. So it's all just essentially to reduce the water requirements for landscape areas. So.
Okay, so it mainly pertains to landscaping.
That's what this is all about. Yeah.
All about, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I had. Thank you.
Have we not started doing that already, Mr. Peters?
We have, yeah. So we've adopted these policies in our improvement standards. We just haven't adopted the ordinance like we probably should have.
Right,
so.
but an example would be like by Quick Corner and AutoZone. Would that be an example?
Yeah,
There's
so
drought-tolerant plants
yeah, so
there.
one of my standard conditions of approval for all development jobs is to comply with the requirements of the MWELO and AB 1881, which spells out all those things. So we've been in practice. We've been implementing this probably all the way back to 2015. Just haven't adopted the ordinance to kind of codify it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Question? Public comment on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for any final thoughts. If not, the recommendation by staff would be to waive the first reading of the ordinance 2025-02, adding chapter 15.10, title 15, and we'll move forward with. You want me to read the entire thing? I can. And we would also cancel the second reading, correct? Is that what you're saying? Okay. Motion for?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Waive the first reading.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Looks like you're not going anywhere, Dave. 11 is a presentation of the Highway Safety Improvement Program Grant Award by City Engineer Dave Peters.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. This item is related to the grant application that we submitted for the Highway Safety Improvement Program. We submitted that grant application on September 9th. We discussed it previously with council back in August. So could you get me the map, pop the map up? Yeah, perfect. So we identified 10th and Kern as a candidate project for the Highway Safety Improvement Program, which essentially is intended to reduce traffic fatalities and injuries at certain locations. So we previously did a local road safety plan. This intersection was like number one on our hot spot of intersections that required some attention. We brought a few options to the council in August to discuss. One was a traffic signal, one was a roundabout here, and lastly was installation of a variety of safety devices, which I'll go over in a minute. So the traffic signal, we looked at that. It did not meet warrants, so we weren't going to be able to move forward with that option. Roundabout took too much right away and had too much impacts on surrounding properties, and also did not have nearly as good of a cost benefit ratio as our last option. So this is the option that we submitted. It includes, like I said, a variety of things, a new speed table, which is only about 2.5 inches, 3 inches tall, so don't let the name scare you. These are implemented around schools quite a bit. It'll have rectangular rapid flashing beacons like you've seen at several of our other crosswalks in town. We're realigning the curbs, so let's see if this laser pointer works or not. Yeah, so we're realigning this curb right here, pulling it in to narrow the roadway on the west leg, or excuse me, on the east leg. We're also adding some speed feedback signs down in this area, so there'll be the school ones, flash if you're coming in too hot. These are high visibility crosswalks all the way around, and then we're upgrading the pedestrian ramps in each corner as well. So the project had a pretty good cost-benefit ratio. We submitted it and were notified in February that we were awarded a little over $1 million to implement this project. So the timing on it, we should get the design funding released later this year, and then we're looking at a summer 2027 construction, just because it is federal dollars, so it takes a little bit to get through those projects. This is informational only, so unless there's questions, that's all I have.
Any questions from Mr. Peters about this?
I have a question. On Kern Street, so I guess it would be the west side, not the east, and the south part of that. Is there any way to include that whole sidewalk? That's where we got a lot of residents to complain about, like, that whole way. Is there any way to
like
redo that sidewalk?
Like widen it or?
No, fix it.
Fix it?
That's where you and I have gone and walked a couple times.
Sure, I think we can
Yeah.
take a look at that. I don't see why not.
I think it's that whole block.
Yeah, the whole block. Yeah, that was not included in the grant funding. It would fall within the parameters of the grant scope. So if we end up having enough grant funds, I think there wouldn't be a problem with putting it in. Or we're not planning to go to construction until summer 2027, so there's a possibility that we could budget for those improvements in addition to what the grant we have. So
You have that wheelchair ramp right there. There's no way with some of the holes in that sidewalk that a wheelchair could even go all the way down there. So
for sure,
maybe it can help our
absolutely.
residents.
Yeah.
Mr. Peters, is it very expensive to add the speed hump towards the south coming into town? Because most of the speeders come down into town are going, like you say, pretty hot. So does that add a significant cost to this project?
You add like a second one on the other side?
Or even move. I mean, I know we talked about the hump being close to the school, but I know that the speed comes south going north into town.
I think we thought that location would have more pedestrians than further south of there. And so really the speed table, like I said, it kind of has a funky name. It's really to, I think it does slow your speed down some, but it also is to give more visibility to the pedestrians as they cross the intersection.
I think that might.
So, we could take a look at that.
My only fear with that is that's going to get confusing and people are going to
Yeah.
use it as a crosswalk. Because I think that all of these are crosswalks. These are pedestrian crossings.
Yeah, they
And
are.
it's to
Right.
indicate that there's pedestrians. If we move one down, it's not really a speed bump. We're going to be adding an additional crosswalk.
Yeah, you have-
kind of mid-block where there's nothing
Right.
nothing
I agree with
there.
that.
But isn't there a crosswalk there? Oh, there's not a crosswalk there
You know,
already?
there'll be ramps here at the corners just because we're mandated to put those in, but this will be a ramp as well, and this will be a ramp. So we'll be directing all the pedestrians to cross here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was thinking the southern one.
Yeah. So you really wouldn't put a speed table in the intersection. This is within the intersections. You really want to put it in an intersection. It's usually more of a mid-block or separated from the intersection a little bit. But like I said, we can look at that.
Is it redoing the driveway for that parking lot at the school? That's the entrance and exit is right where that speed table or whatever, what did you
Right
call
here?
it?
Right here?
The speed table? Oh, is it past it?
Yeah, I think the driveway's right in here.
Okay. And then did you talk to the district about buses? Because that's like the main bus drop off on the west side of that parking lot right there. That's where all the buses come.
Right here?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
come down and then they turn in there
I don't really think we're going to affect them.
with the speed table.
I
like
mean, I'm
the
happy
speed
to have that
table.
conversation, but yeah, no, the buses should have no problem traversing over that. Like I said, it's not very high at all. And you can see there's approaches on each side of that speed table, so it's very soft.
Just to weigh in on our conversations with the school district. So anytime we propose a project like this with the district, we reach out informally and just ask if they're in support of some sort of improvement project. At this level, it doesn't usually get that detailed because we don't know exactly if we're going to get the grant or not. But then once we secure the grant, Dave will get more into the specifics of actual design, and then we'll sit down and talk about a lot of those issues. And usually those can be addressed at that point. But in general, the elementary district has been really easy to work with, and they're always very in favor of safety improvement projects that will benefit kids. And so they're it's not to say that there won't be challenges we have to work out, but we always do have a pretty open line of communication.
And I know we did reach out to the principal there, and there was some discussion. I don't know how in-depth that was, but there was a contact there when we were doing the grant application. So, and we will follow up with, like Alex said, a much more detailed conversation with them.
Yeah, I know that this intersection has come up a lot with citizens. That's my district for many years.
Yeah.
And it's come up in a public safety committee meeting also.
Yeah.
And I know Abby sent out an email to the public safety committee. And so, but you said it's scheduled for 2020, summer of 2027?
Yeah,
Okay.
it takes a while to get through these projects with all the federal funding requirements. So.
Okay.
Dave, quick question. On Kern there, you're moving the curb out to where the
That's right.
street's so wide.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen there? You're going to have a really wide sidewalk, or how will that work?
No, we will most likely remove this portion of the roadway and then vacate some right of way back to this person right here, so they'll get a little bit more yard.
That road's super confusing right there too, so I think it will.
Yeah, I
help-
think that's a big. I think
help
that's a
it.
big issue there. Is narrowing the east side of the roadway will make it feel more like a more standard intersection. Yeah.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
I think that confuses drivers.
Any more council questions? Open up for public comments. Anybody from the public want to speak on this? Okay, if not, we will bring it back to council for any final discussion. I hope we're able to maintain the funding. I know that our federal funding is going to be in jeopardy for a little bit off and on, so hopefully this is one of the projects that sticks around.
Okay.
It's informational only with no action needed. So we will now move to item 12, the 2024-2025 revenue report update. Staff report by City Manager Alexander Henderson.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, as part of our annual budget process. We usually provide revenue updates and give some idea for the current fiscal year as we start to prepare for the next fiscal year. So I've got a couple of presentations. First one relates to revenue. The second one's about CalPERS. The first one, I guess I'll call it the more positive presentation. The second one, less so. So tonight we're just going to talk a little bit about what our major funding sources, mostly related to our general fund, but I do break out the Measure E fund, which is our 1% public safety tax, which does go into a special fund. So this is our general revenue forecast. This was our adopted budget at the beginning of the year. You can see that for general fund, property taxes make up the largest portion of revenue that we receive, followed by sales tax. Motor vehicle in lieu is kind of a portion of property tax that got apportioned out by the state of California. I'll talk a little bit about that later. So just as a reminder, when you purchase something in Kingsburg, you pay 8.975%. Sales tax on eligible items, and this is a breakdown of where those sales tax dollars go. Majority of it is the larger portion is to the state and county realignment, and then the two that impact us, at least organizationally. I mean, they all have some impact, but organizationally are the Bradley Burns 1%, and then the 1% Measure E. And as you'll see later, those are different things qualify for those 1%, and so they're not equitable. In terms of how much we receive. This is a list of our top 25 sales tax remitters, our businesses. This is in alphabetical order. This changes by quarter. This is the most recent one. So you can see there just a couple of the businesses that produce most sales tax for us. Most of our service stations, fuel sales are integral part of our sales tax collection. But there's also some other ones, newer restaurants on there like Roadhouse 99 and Cheyenne's as well. So this is a breakdown of our Bradley Burns sales tax. Again, we have received the first 6 months of the year, so July through December 2024. So the numbers in red there are forecasted. They are provided by our third-party sales tax consultant, so they provide forecasting based upon trends and what they've seen in previous years. So I did receive just this afternoon the fourth quarter numbers. So some of those red numbers are a little bit different than what I show there because I completed this last week. But they were positive. They trended up, not a significant amount, but trended up a little bit. But good news is right now is that Bradley Burns, for the most part, is showing higher than previous years, which would be, if it comes in as projected there, would be the highest that we've ever received in this amount or in this category. So Measure E, again, our public safety tax passed in 2018. Those revenues are more diversified. So if you buy, we've talked about this before, but if you buy a new vehicle or if you are purchasing things through online, you're getting the full 1% there, which is not the case for the Bradley Burns collection. So you see here, again, these numbers, not the most current. They are a little bit higher as well in the most recent projections. We've seen some leveling out of this one more so than the Bradley Burns, and I think that has more to do with the, as aforementioned, diversification of what we collect there. So again, we've talked a little bit in the past. You see in 21, 22, there was people coming out of COVID, having stimulus dollars, spending a little bit more, doing things after not being able to do things for a while that we think really boosted those numbers. So while those numbers are going down, which is disappointing, I think they're probably going to trend closer to the 2023-2024 number, and is probably a little bit closer to what will be normal there, whereas the one spike year was a little bit higher than what we should come to expect. So property taxes, again, 1% of assessed value. Everyone's familiar in California that that's capped. So CPI 2% a year, whichever's less. And the big portion here is it changes for us is when there is a property is sold, because then it gets reassessed. The amount increases, and then we see that different when there's change in that difference when there's change in ownership. The in lieu of vehicle license fees, again, it's a carve out of property tax. So it's basically where you register, pay your vehicle registrations. Got changed prior to 2004. Revenues were collected and allocated statewide among cities and counties. But there was a bunch of things that occurred because of severe fiscal problems at the state. There was things it was called the triple flip for a long time. And then some educational revenue fund or ERAF realignment. And so now VLF swap monies is what they're called. Are considered a subset of property taxes collected by the city. So where your property taxes actually go, here's a breakdown here. So schools are the biggest one, the county, then us, and then individual special districts. TOT, also known as a bed tax, is a 12% charge for people who stay in our hotels or motels, and this also includes any home sharing services like Airbnb. Kingsburg voters in 2008 increased this amount from 8 to 12%. And then licenses and fees, so this is a portion of our business licenses, planning and zoning fees, building permit fees, plan check and engineering fees, and other state mandated fees that we're required to collect. So just a summary of kind of where we're projecting this year. Again, the 24-25, we get two large teeters when it comes to property taxes and motor vehicle fees. So we've gotten roughly half of those FAR numbers on the right so far. We'll get our second teeter from the county in May. Transient occupancy taxes are paid quarterly, so we've gotten roughly half of that as well halfway through the year. And then permits and fees just come in based upon general activity. But positive news is that most of those are trending higher as we project through the end of the fiscal year. So again, most of the sales tax revenue are in line with our projections. Again, property taxes and permit fees are a little bit higher than we were originally projecting. Fuel sales, as I mentioned, remain a large portion of our Bradley Burns revenues, and those our sales tax consultant does take in declines over the next years based upon what is their expectation of more people converting to EV vehicles. Property taxes, again, steady increases that we've seen in the last 5 years, part of that due to new housing that's been constructed, but then also when new houses are sold, you'll see those dollar amounts increase. And then this just in general is a less volatile revenue source for us than sales taxes. Development-based permitting remains steady, but is also dependent upon economic activity, both residential and commercial. And just a general outlook, their economists are sort of predicting, sort of a up and down 2025, which means consumer demand might remain a little subdued just because of the unknown impacts of tariffs and inflation and just overall costs. So locally, for us, that is, we just kind of watch out for our sales tax receipts, but it can impact things like our TOT or our bed tax because if people have less money, less discretionary dollars, they may travel less, things like that. So we will keep an eye out on that as well. That concludes my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions regarding this or council discussion? No? Is there any public comment on this? Okay, we'll bring it back for council discussion. Any final thoughts or words? Okay, if not, this is informational only.
I got another one.
And we can move on to the less good news, it sounds like. The City CalPERS update, report by City Manager Alex Henderson.
Thank you, Abby. Can I turn on the fans? Yes, as mentioned, it's our CalPERS update, annual CalPERS update. So I'll provide a little bit of background on this and then show some of the impacts specific to Kingsburg. So pension funding in general is made up of contributions both by the employer and employee and then interest earnings. So you can see there how public pensions are funded with 55% of it coming from investment earnings. And then just the breakdown from CalPERS total, their total fund is $75.5 billion there, what that makeup is. And what our contribution requirements are based upon our benefit provisions, actuarial assumptions and methods, member info, and actual experience. That goes all into CalPERS calculations, and then they spit out what each organization is required to contribute each year. So this is a little difficult to see, so I apologize, but you can, on the left there, this is information that's provided by Caltrans. Focusing specifically on the bottom, you can kind of show that overall net position. So last year when I reported, which was fiscal year 23, they showed about 465-ish billion of net position. Fiscal year 24, so the most recent actuarial data, they're showing about 506 billion in net position. Now, what that relates to in the funded status there is on the left-hand side. So again, it was about just shy of 71% at the end of fiscal year 22, and they are projecting about 75% funded status fiscal year 24. So just a little bit of background on PERS. They actually had a funded status of 101% in fiscal year 07, which dropped to 61% in fiscal year 09 based upon the recession. January 1, 2013, PEPRA, which is pension reform, took effect. CalPERS has lowered the discount rate a few times. It's currently at 6.8%. Discount rate is essentially another term for what their expected rate of return is on their investments. And you can see at kind of what's happened in the last few years. So the fund lost 6.1% in fiscal year 22, which was the first loss since the Great Recession. Had a return of 5.8% in fiscal year 23, and has an initial return of 9.3% in fiscal year 24. But on the bottom there, you'll see the 5-year period, they're at about 6.6%, 10-year at 6.2, and 20-year at 6.7. All of those are below 6.8, which is their current projection of return on investment. So for Kingsburg specifically, we maintain 3 funds. We have Classic Miscellaneous, which includes mostly public works and city hall employees, Classic Police, Classic Fire, and then their equivalency in the PEPRA, which is through public pension reform. So again, just talking a little bit about PEPRA members. So they have reduced benefits. There's a new maximum benefit for both sides. There's a requirement that employees share equally in cost, and some other rules there. CalPERS wide, about 64% of active members are now PEPRA members, and for Kingsburg, 74% of our active organization are PEPRA members. So when it comes to our contributions, it's made up of our normal cost, which is a percentage of our payroll, which is of active employees, and then what they call an unfunded actuarial liability, or UAL, which is a payment that we have to make each year. So again, normal costs are what were required for active employees. You can see, again, PEPRA members pay 50-50 with the city. All the other classic ones, it's about a 63-37 split, with the city covering 63%. They're all at the highest amount allowable without additional negotiation with the bargaining units at this point. And then our biggest number here, which you'll see, is our UAL, which is calculated annually and is the difference between what the accrued liability is and the asset value. And it changes each year based upon the investment returns, mortality rate of members, and the number of retirees. So the best way that I describe this is that it's a mortgage balance with a constantly moving target, which makes it very difficult to budget for. Cities have the option to pay monthly payments for this, or they can prepay in July of each year, which saves 1 month of interest, which is about, I think, $28,000 for us, and so we always prepay that. We did evaluate, especially when interest rates were higher, whether it would make more sense to hold on to those dollars and make monthly payments, and then have get more in interest rates, but it was still more beneficial to make the lump sum payments. So back in 2017, 2018, we hired an actuarial to take a look at what our unfunded liability requirements would be so that we could plan for future years. So this data is a little old. This slide, I think, is a little bit more appropriate. So the bottom line, blue line, is those that are negative numbers. That's employees cost sharing for us. The pink line or orangish line is our normal costs, so active employees, and then that red line is our UAL payment, and you can see how that increases over the years. We have historically been paying less than what this projected back then, specifically because of some of the ADPs that we made, but it also has factors included like return on investment, that CalPERS fund has completed. And the other thing is that this assumed a 7% rate of return. So this is before they lowered the discount rate to 6.8%. So the red numbers would be even higher if they considered, obviously a lower rate of return on investments. So I think this is probably the most telling slide that we have. So you can see here what we make in lump sum payments. This is just the last 5 years, the ones that are sort of in peach or in yellow. The difference for the upcoming year, fiscal year 26, versus fiscal year 25 is about $124,000. But for reference, while it's not included on this slide, our payment in fiscal year 18 was $428,000 in all UAL payments, and so with a projection of $866,000 for next year, this represents a 102% increase in just 8 years. So this is just pension requirements, no additional positions, nothing like that. This is just our UAL costs right here. So a significant amount of part of the overall compensation that the city provides. So again, what have we kind of done to address this? So council adopted a policy of pushing 70% of surplus funding to a UAL fund, which they can use at their discretion to help pay down this liability through additional discretionary payments, or also through just offsetting some of those increasing annual, sort of peaks, so that we don't impact other operations. We've implemented employee cost sharing up to the amount that we're allowed by law, and then of course we pay the UAL each year in lump sum. So we have made discretionary payments a couple of times, both in October and in December, October of 2019 and December of 2021, from that fund. And so our next steps now, we will wait the actuarial documents, which will come out later this year. But again, that will be used for next fiscal year. We already have the numbers for fiscal year 2026. We're basically all contracting counties, cities, and special districts are roughly a couple years in arrears as it relates to our requirements. And then, as I mentioned, CalPERS has estimated a 9.3% total annual investment rate of return. And we'll continue to look for opportunities to, buy down some of that long-term liability, which mostly has an impact on saving on long-term interest. That concludes my report. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for city manager?
See, not as fun.
So we'll open it up to the public real quick. Is there anybody from the public that would like to discuss CalPERS? If not, do we have any final thoughts from council? I have just one then. That was a lot of words because it's complicated. And you really have to dive into it to understand it. And I can't stand PEPRA. I think it's one of the worst things we did for our employees, not our choice. I think it's one of the worst things the state did for our employees. Makes them less loyal to their original agencies. They just transfer a lot more based on that. But I will say that Alex, you and your team have done a great job managing this and planning that UAL fund, making extra payments when we can, and just setting up a structure for success. This is going to end up making our UAL payments in 34, 35. We're going to be like $1.7 million for that. and you're planning accordingly for that. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the time you guys spend. This is one of the least sexy things that the city does, but it's one of the most important because it's one of the most expensive. So I just want to take a quick second. I know it's informational only, but to say thank you to you and your staff. You guys spend a lot of time on this, and I appreciate it. Appreciate that. If there's nothing else, we will move on. Item 14, the status of the City of Kingsburg's vacancy and recruitment and retention efforts in calendar year 24-25. This staff report is by our Assistant City Manager, Christina Windover.
Guess I need that back.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Can we get the mic just a little bit closer to you? It's just, I have bad hearing. I apologize.
Okay. My presentation tonight is on AB 2561. This is legislation that was passed and became effective on January 1st, 2025. Essentially, it creates legal obligations for the city to adopt a compliance policy with the legislation and to do an annual reporting of it. So first of all, one of our obligations is to have a public hearing at least once each fiscal year in front of the City Council, where staff will report information regarding the status of vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts within the city for city personnel, and identify any necessary changes to policies, procedures, or other recruitment activities that may lead to obstacles in the hiring process. So the last part of my presentation will be this public hearing. Part of my public hearing requires notifying our associations of our intent to hold a public hearing. And so our 3 associations have been notified of our public hearing tonight. Part of the legislation requires that the employee associations are given the opportunity to speak and present at a public hearing if any of our vacancies in any given bargaining unit are 20% or higher. In the case of Kingsburg, none of our vacancies met that threshold. And then lastly, the associations can speak and essentially talk about reasons why there may be barriers to our hiring process, or generally speak to council about any concerns that they may have. And so again, I did reach out to all 3 of our associations, and none of them had any comments or feedback on the policy itself. And like I said, we don't have any vacancies higher than 20%, so there will be no employee organization presentations tonight. So the recommended action by council is to approve the policy, which would be in compliance with AB 2561. It establishes the framework and requirements for holding the public hearings and reporting on the city's vacancies, recruitment and retention efforts. And we've attached the policy to the staff report. And then I will just go over a PowerPoint presentation with the details required within the public hearing.
Do we need to officially open the public under that assembly bill? Does it require, Christina, do you know, to officially open the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, I think we can go ahead and do that now, just for a formality.
I don't know if we noticed the public hearing, an actual public hearing.
No, this is sufficient.
It doesn't have to be like an actual public hearing.
Meeting.
Just a public.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not a
Okay.
Meeting, not a public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I've already kind of discussed throughout my staff report the purpose of this presentation. So the legislation specifically refers to our bargaining units. We have 3 bargaining units within the city. That's the Kingsburg Police Officers Association, the Kingsburg Professional Firefighters Association, and the Kingsburg Public Service Employees Association. We have 56 employees within those 3 units total. However, there are unrepresented employees, part-time employees, and others who are not included in the report tonight. So there may have been more positions that remained vacant throughout the last year that aren't reported in this presentation because we're only reporting on those recognized associations. So we do have 74 full-time positions, but we will just be going over the ones that are represented. This slide shows the previous calendar year and the number of vacancies within each month. Our average number of vacancies is less than 1% each month for our 3 bargaining units. However, we did have 1 month where our highest vacancy rate is 3%, but we also had many months where there were no vacancies. When I'm referring to vacancies, I mean that we budgeted for a position and then it was either not filled because of a recruitment problem or management choice, attrition, things like that. So the threshold for when an employee organization can make a presentation to council and the public is 20%, and our highest month was 3% overall. This slide just goes over terminology for a recruitment and hiring process, and it just discusses various processes within our recruitment and retention, within our recruitment process. Some positions we hold examinations for, we do interviews, some have multiple rounds of interviews before a candidate is selected and put through our onboarding process. So I can go over any terminology as we go through the presentation that may be confusing. So in 2025, we had 5 vacancies that we're required to report on, meaning that they fell within an association. So there could be other positions that are unrepresented that aren't listed here. So we did hire more than 5 people in the last year. This is just who applies to our reporting requirements. The number of vacancies filled due to eligibility issues was 0. We filled 1 vacancy from external recruitment. The average day to fill the vacancies was 73 days. That sounds like a long time frame, but that is counting the time that we kept a job open and tried to advertise on social media or on applicable job boards. That includes the time they go through the interview processes up until they get their final offer and their start date. The average number of calendar days was 81 days. Part of the legislation requires us to identify potential challenges to hiring qualified candidates. I think staff has identified a few possible challenges to the recruitment process. Part of that is finding candidates who are qualified for the positions we are recruiting for. So that means whether or not they meet the minimum qualifications for the job. Sometimes we do have candidates who meet the minimum qualifications, but we have a few pre-employment examinations. That could be a written test, that could be interviews, it could be drug testing, physical fitness testing, things of that nature. So we do have some instances where a candidate is moved forward but then fails a pre-employment examination. And then lastly, We do have an anti-nepotism policy that prevents hiring people who are next of kin within the same department, and that has been an obstacle that we've identified in hiring over the last year or so. We will be updating our personnel manual, so that last policy consideration will be something that we discuss in greater detail with our department heads. Our retention statistics, this is related to reasons why we may have vacancies. So our total vacancies again for 2024 was 5. 0 of those were because of newly budgeted positions. If we looked at the whole organization, we would have actually 1 or 2 positions in there, but because we're only looking at the employee associations, that number is 0. And then the number of vacancies that were created through internal promotion or transfer was 4. So that results in 80% of the vacancies being from internal opportunity. So those are good numbers. It shows that we try to promote from within, and that also creates vacancies at the lower level. Our annual staff turnover rate was 8%, and that is, again, for all 3 of our bargaining units. There are some statistics here on other reasons for why a vacancy was created in 2024. One of the reasons was due to retirement. One of them was due to involuntary separation. None of them were due to attrition, and then the remaining 3 were due to the employees voluntarily separating with the city. Additional information for our vacancy, which is broken down by each association. So our Police Officers Association, that bargaining unit had 2 out of the 5 vacancies for the year, out of a total of 24 budgeted positions. So they had about an 8% of our total vacancies. The Kingsburg Professional Firefighters Association accounted for 1 of them out of 18 budgeted positions for less than 1%, and the Kingsburg Public Service Employees Association accounted for 2 of those vacancies total. So that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions from council?
Well, I have a question. The public service vacancies, are those full-time or part-time? Those are full-time?
They're all full-time
They're all
employees.
full-time, yeah, okay. 'Cause those are reportable?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment on this? Final council discussion on this topic? Christina, thank you. I think you guys are on the right path.
Yeah.
Change whatever policies you need to make it work. Look forward to it. Yeah, and just overall, I think that our vacancy rates are low because it's a good place to work. I don't think council's really interested in lowering our standards. I think that we have incredibly high standards, and you guys are maintaining those, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
That is informational only, or do we need to accept that? Okay, sorry, let me bring that. Got off page here. So that motion would be to adopt the. Okay, yeah, so it's be to adopt the 2561 compliance policy. Do you have a motion for that?
Make that motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next we're going to move to our future agenda items. We have none listed. And we will move to the city manager's report.
I just want to remind you that the Seniors Inc. is having a fundraiser this Saturday evening at the Historical Park. So shrimp boil with silent auction, all of that involved. So I think Adam said there was a couple of tables left. That's all I have.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to council member reports and council committee reports. We will start with Councilmember North.
Bid will meet on April 1st. Chamber met last week. There was the chamber dinner this last weekend, recognizing our citizens. There was a mixer tonight at pretty much the same time council was at SKF. The car show is April 19th. Swedish Festival is coming up May 15th through the 17th. Centerpoint, our next quarterly meeting is April 24th in Parlier, and the next chamber meeting is on April 8th. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith?
Yes, the Finance Committee will be meeting on March 24th. Community Services Commission will be meeting, their next meeting will be April 23rd, and the dog park grand opening is going to be Saturday, April 12th at 10 a.m. And that is it.
Thank you. Councilmember Silva?
The Economic Development Committee has not met, although I will say that there have been some positive signs on getting businesses on the business park sign, the Kingsburg Business Park sign. So that's positive. The San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control has not met. The South Kings GSA canceled due to lack of business, so hopefully we'll meet next week. To partly off of the chamber, the car show committee meets tomorrow night from 6 to 7 at the chamber office for anybody that would like to attend. I'm sure they could still use some volunteers for that event. And then the Kingsburg Healthcare District did meet, and they approved the revisions to the grant application. So I have the new grant application if anybody would like to see it here and understand the revisions that were made. Other than that, that concludes my committee report.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Public Safety, we're scheduled to meet in May. Planning Commission, we met last week, and the agenda item was concerning the Sinclair gas station. So the Planning Commission passed a negative declaration for the project concerning CEQA, which needs to be done, negative declaration, mostly for all gas stations, and they approved a conditional use permit application for Sinclair. SKF, we met also last week, and what we just went over, we had a public hearing on status of district personnel vacancies, recruitment and retention efforts as required by AB 2561. That's what we did. That's all we did over there on Thursday. And I did attend the chamber mixer tonight for half an hour at SKF, and it was well attended because it was chambers from all three cities and some of the council members from Fowler and Selma. Yeah, so that concludes my report.
COG and Transit has not met. Last weekend we had the annual chamber dinner, which was a great event. Lots of great interaction with the public. Gave a little speech. And just continuing the efforts, everybody that I can talking to about Measure E, just really trying to lay that foundation as much as we can. Just want to encourage staff and council while we still can to keep having that ongoing conversation with everybody, letting them know exactly how important that is. Do not have anything else. Is there any other topics? Okay, if not, we're going to go ahead and adjourn into closed session for litigation pursuant to subdivisions of the California Government Code. Thank you.